The quiet crown. She stood at the edge of the celebration, hands clasped gently in front of her white silk dress that hung modestly, unadorned, as if plucked from a department store sale rack rather than a designer atelier. Her hair was pulled into a low bun, not the kind styled by a celebrity hairstylist, but one she'd likely done herself in a mirror that morning. No earrings, no jewelry, no makeup that couldn't be applied in 10 minutes. She was there, yet invisibly at least to everyone except the one person who mattered. Around her swirled the elite of the elite, gathered in the glass garden of the Langston estate, a sprawling sanctuary of marble, light, and curated privilege. Crystal chandeliers dangled like stars frozen in a lavish constellation overhead, casting delicate rainbows across walls wrapped in white orchids. Gold-rimmed tables bore the weight of silver towers of caviar, imported cheeses, and champagne so exclusive that only sommeliers knew how to pronounce the label. The air was heavy with the scent of affluence and arrogance. It was their engagement party, hers and Nicholas Langston's, but one wouldn't know it from the seating chart. While senators and tech moguls sipped $100 cocktails at the central tables, she stood beside a side table with no name card and no champagne. When guests passed her, they either ignored her or whispered insults too loud to be subtle. "That dress, did she cut it from hotel curtains?" One voice snickered. "I thought she was catering staff," another chimed in. "Judging by that perfume, she probably is," a woman added with a wrinkled nose and a cruel grin. Laughter echoed like applause for a private joke shared by the rich. Her name was Eliza Monroe, 28 years old, an elementary school teacher from Columbus, Ohio. She had no lineage in fashion, no grandfather with a real estate empire, no Ivy League degree with connections sewn into every thread of her resume. What she did have, however, was integrity, intelligence, kindness, the kind of strength built from long days and longer nights, helping struggling students see themselves as more than statistics. She met Nicholas at a literacy fundraiser 2 years earlier. While everyone else courted the cameras, she'd stood at the book table helping a shy boy pick out his first chapter book. Nicholas had watched her from a distance, curious at first, then captivated. He had wealth, ambition, power, but what he saw in her was something no dollar sign could buy: depth, purpose, quiet grace. But quiet grace had no place in a room like this. Nicholas's mother, Margaret Langston, had planned every inch of this event like a royal coronation, except the chosen queen wasn't Eliza. It was Vanessa Kingsley Nicholas's ex, a model-turned-socialite whose family once graced the cover of Vanity Fair. She sat now at the head table beside Nicholas's grandparents, her designer gown clinging to her like armor. When Margaret introduced Eliza to a congresswoman, she didn't say future daughter-in-law. She didn't even say fiancé. "This is our dear family friend, Eliza," she said with a brittle smile, gesturing vaguely in Eliza's direction without so much as a glance. The congresswoman nodded politely and moved on. Eliza heard it all, every insult, every sidelong look, every snide remark from the guests who saw her as an intruder. And still, she didn't flinch, didn't fight. Her hazel eyes remained fixed on the orchids, swaying in the spring breeze just beyond the arched glass. "She's a teacher," Vanessa's voice rose across the garden. "Must be really good at washing dishes." The laughter that followed was loud enough to startle the string quartet. Eliza's hands tightened slightly around the clutch she held. She had taught children to navigate the cruelty of peers with dignity. Now, she was putting that lesson into practice. Behind the laughter, the disdain spread like wildfire. A hedge fund CEO murmured that she looked like a thrift store mascot. A fashion editor noted that her hairstyle looked like it was done with a spoon and a prayer. An usher openly mistook her for extra help and loudly asked her to check coats. When she didn't respond, he smirked and muttered, "Guess she's not bilingual after all." Margaret Langston, elegant in an $8,000 door gown, moved through the party with the grace of someone used to control. Her eyes scanned Eliza like a stain. "This is not the legacy I raised my son for," she said under her breath to a senator, loud enough to carry. By the time the welcome toast was announced, the humiliation had reached a crescendo. The master of ceremonies raised a crystal flute and beamed. Tonight, we celebrate the engagement of Nicholas Langstanto, a partner who embodies everything this family stands for. The guests turned, glasses raised, eyes landing on Vanessa, who accepted the attention with the poise of someone who had rehearsed this scene 100 times in the mirror. Eliza stood silent, untouched by the champagne that never made its way to her table. Then the glass doors at the far end of the garden opened. Nicholas entered without fanfare, his suit sharp, his hair slightly tousled from the wind. He did not greet the crowd, did not acknowledge the cameras waiting for their cue. He walked directly to Eliza and kissed her forehead. The garden fell into stunned silence. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice calm and deliberate. "Just closed a $3 billion deal with the UAE. Wouldn't have happened without this woman's counsel." He turned to face the stunned audience. "For those of you confused, this is Eliza Monromi Fiancé, the woman I intend to marry." Gasps rippled like a thunderclap across the garden. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Margaret's flute slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble. "I see the seating chart was rearranged without my knowledge," Nicholas continued. "Allow me to correct that." He took Eliza's hand and walked her to the center of the garden. "She's not here for charity," he said. "She's the reason I've invested $500 million into literacy programs nationwide. She's the reason I'm not another hollow billionaire chasing validation." He pulled a velvet box from his pocket, opened it, and slid a breathtaking diamond ring onto her finger. Eliza didn't cry. She didn't smile with vengeance. She simply looked up at him, her expression calm, proud, radiant. Nicholas turned to the crowd. "From this moment on, anyone who disrespects Eliza Monroe disrespects me. And I have the resources to make sure disrespect is not rewarded." He gestured to a tablet that his assistant handed him. Names scrolled across the screen. "The following individuals will no longer receive invitations to Langston events or partnerships with our firms: Vanessa Kingsley, Margaret Langston, Marcus Lane, Lydia Brooks, Gregory Tate, and others whose cruelty was noted." The list went on. A senator tried to protest. Nicholas cut him off. "Your seat in Washington doesn't protect you from decency. You mock the woman I love. That ends here." Margaret staggered forward. "Nicholas, please. Don't do this." "You did this," he replied. "You betrayed my trust." Vanessa stood, face pale, and slipped out through a side door. The photographers didn't follow. Nicholas raised his glass. "To Eliza Monroe. Not just my partner, but my equal." The garden erupted in applause, but it was different now. Not the polite clapping of obligation, but something deeper. A reckoning. A shifting of tectonic plates beneath the marble. One by one, those who had laughed came forward, heads bowed, apologies fumbling from their lips. "I was wrong to dismiss you," said the congresswoman, her diamond necklace dim against Eliza's quiet glow. "I'm ashamed," whispered the usher. "I forgot what manners were." Even Lydia, the catering manager, approached with tears in her eyes. "I misjudged you." Eliza nodded once. "Thank you for your apology." Nicholas's voice carried over the fading music. "The Langston name stands for legacy. Tonight, we redefine what that means." He turned to Eliza. "Shall we dance?" She smiled small, sincere, and placed her hand in his. As they moved to the center of the floor, the chandeliers shimmered overhead, casting new light onto the marble, onto the guests, onto the very soul of the garden. And in that moment, it was not Eliza who changed. It was the world around her that finally saw her for who she was. The woman they tried to erase. The woman who stood without screaming, who endured without folding, who loved without needing applause. Her dress, plain and unbranded, became a symbol, a quiet crown,